there were lots of periods when it went through sort of convulsions of personnel.
Stars and bars that across the USA.
Forthright music artist AWM has been pumping out his particular brand of stuff for 30 years. Starting out with his first incarnation, Writer's Revenge, which eventually morphed into the strange cult-like creation, the AM Band, he has insisted on continually making albums, now currently on his 16th.
So that little thing you're looking for is coming on quite.
I was granted exclusive access to the self-proclaimed genius and took the opportunity to peer into the strange cult-like entity of which he remains instrumental. To begin with, I got a fairly potted history from the singer's mouth, whilst my researchers and I uncovered material that sheds an eerie light on this strange musical agglomeration and some of the other key figures in this rarely examined cult.
Here it comes round the corner with his best friend Freddie Berry too.
As we delve into the history of AWM, the AM Band, and proclaim loudly, "Oh, the banality." I started out by asking the cult's chief inspirator how it all got started. He was unsurprisingly not forthcoming about the gorier details until I whetted his ego, and then it all spilled out.
Obviously, it did start with a couple of school kids in the front room, and yeah, I mean, when we started, originally it was with John, and he and I were sort of doing these weird, terrible demos, which have later been recreated with Love Marine.
material from these murky beginnings are relatively rare. These disturbing images were discovered along with this interview of recovering Writer's Revenge and briefly AM band member Mike Caton. To protect his identity, we've pasted on ridiculously exaggerated sideburns.
But I thought he was talented, you know, because at the Greedy Grape, a lot of people hated him, you see. Like, he showed me all these things that he'd done. And I thought, well, blimey, you know, a musical, a play, poems, songs, all the rest of it. I mean, the tapes weren't good, but I liked his singing. And a lot of people up there, they all says, oh, he's a wanker, you know, don't go near him and all that.
You gotta help me! Oh, you gotta help me on my own! 'Cause if you don't help me, like I'm going out on my own. Yeah, you gotta get my feeling. I gotta be here.
In those early years, AWM's advanced skills in personal communication led to the first almost permanent lineup. Except obviously it wasn't actually permanent. However, the one adherent to the AM cult was Austin Hornbrook, who was inducted in by AWM's customary charm.
I was working with this musician, guitarist, and we were trying to get some stuff together. It wasn't really working out. So he told me that Andrew was making tapes and doing recordings. It looked as if he was going to get a record deal. So I thought, how am I going to, I wanted to get in with this guy. So I thought, how am I going to introduce myself to him? So I went up to I think it was in the playground or something like that. And I said, the first thing that came in my head was like, how's the Top Pots going, Andrew? And he said, oh, piss off.
He then found at least 3 other people to play in the sandbox of his disturbing visions: Susanna Behrens, Paul Brady and Richard Morn.
And obviously Austin and I started working, and I told him to piss off, so that was always a good start. And and then Richard Morn and Paul Brady, or as we like to call him, the winter drummer, because he seemed to vanish every summer. He used to disappear, and then he seemed to return in the winter. It was like a migrating thing with him.
You managed, for some reason, to be in the band 3 times.
Yeah.
Could you describe how that actually happened, how that came about?
It was only the 3rd time that I was in the band, I think, that it was a serious sort of commitment, if you like. Before that, I played with lots of people and I had my foot in all sorts of doors, as it were. And I remember they used to say that I used to disappear for the winters, I think it was, and come and be in the band for the summers. And it was a bit like that, I think. But it was only the 3rd time that I remember actually came to Andrew with the view that I really wanted to play with him and that he now had something he could really offer me. I think before that he used to just phone me up and I would just play with anybody.
Tender it slowly, I'll never see glory. I wish I'd been holy every day. Tender it slowly, I'll never see glory. Should have been holy every day. Waves riding over a camp.
His first attempt at world domination was, of course, a crashing failure. Dragging the long-suffering Austin to Covent Garden to take his bizarre message to the streets. It was at this point he began showing signs of his later famous disconnection from reality, when in the middle of the show he imagined he was in a version of The Who from Pound Stretcher and would attempt to demolish a cowbell attached to a flimsy stand. The result being a number of decimated stands and bemused looks from passers-by. The cowbell stubbornly endured.
Not funny. Like so many other bands.
Here's my cowbell, and I'm going to beat it up for the next 5 minutes. You know, everybody's watching. Oh, he's going to beat his cowbell. He starts beating it up.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Soon, every musician in the Hertfordshire area was approached to extend the tendrils of the AM cult, for by 1985 the band's fame had grown exponentially, and so had the number of musicians playing in it, at that time amounting to 1,050 people. It was rumoured that the whole of Whetstone had been a member of the AM band, and this ultimately led to the notorious All Saints Affair. An event so very, very large, it induced simultaneous narcolepsy amongst the vast crowds who attended.
I'd like to welcome you to this very special live edition of The Tube here, live from Andrew Wood Mitchell's prize venue in Whetstone, live for the very first time. Andrew Wood Mitchell and his band of people, live for the very first time in concert, being broadcast throughout this United Kingdom and indeed throughout the world. Many people have said that Andrew Wood Mitchell and his band of people have eclipsed the success of Band Aid, and I believe that this is true. They have outsold Band Aid, and they are indeed one of the top groups in the world. With me is Andrew Wood Mitchell's manager, Mr. I'm not quite sure. What is your name, sir?
No, you don't know me. You've never seen me before in your life.
No, exactly. I was just wondering exactly what your name was, sir.
No, you've never met me before in your life. Andrew Mitchell t-shirts are available at the front of the house. Thank you.
It has been mentioned, sir, that you have been ripping off the kids who are indeed present with us today to watch this live concert being broadcast throughout the world. And you are, in fact, ripping off these children by the Andrew Wood Mitchell t-shirts, key rings, diaries, pens,
Horse noses. No, I deny this completely. This is not true. This is a vicious rumour started by my enemies. It's not true at all.
But how about the I Love Andrew Wood Mitchell t-shirt, which sells at an incredible £87.99?
Well, all the profits from this go directly to Band-Aid. This is true, so please buy as many as you can. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Andrew Wood Mitchell stickers will be available from next week. Thank you very much.
What would you suggest we did with the Andrew Wood Mitchell stickers? It has been suggested that it was, in fact, stuck across his mouth.
Well, this would be a very useful thing to do, as it would prevent him from singing, but I don't think he'd quite like it. And neither would all his fans, as we can see here tonight. And believe me, Andrew Mitchell has a lot of fans. He certainly has. And they're all here to spend lots of money on stickers, t-shirts. Oh, they're about to start. Thank you. Here we go.
We were a band before we could play.
None of us were very accomplished musicians.
He played the piano and the other people did the other stuff.
Now, in the early days, you never seemed to do any solos. Did you think that made the band kind of unique, in that you weren't the guitar hero?
I think it was the fact that I couldn't play guitar solos at the time.
Inspired by this somnolent incident, the cult had its first brush with promotional video. Sponsored by the makers of Pac-Man, it was shot by a cameraman whose perpetual seasickness led to a fascination with early Star Trek explosion photography.
I suppose it's when Pete Pittman and Andy Tristram and Neil joined the band on keyboards. That's when it kind of became a bit more like a sort of an entity that started getting a bit closer to the ideas that I had about what I wanted to hear musically.
In the next 5 years, the group expanded its membership and finally recruited the third significant figure in the organisation. None other than the shadowy heir to the most famous flower corporation in the world. Known to his associates only as the Baker, but more accurately and commonly as Neil. Previously, he'd remained behind the scenes, but after his involvement in a particularly fateful theatrical production entitled Dovetail, he needed to find a secure location, somewhere where no one would ever be likely to see him. So he joined the band on keyboards.
How did you come to join the band then?
Oh, I was arm twisted into that, I think, by a certain person called Gary.
Dividing the thoughts of love, counting down the dreams of others, defying the power of love.
Then came the era of the Act Band. The diabolical quintet started promisingly enough, and by the early months of 1987 produced their crowning achievement, the Good Earth Sessions. Recorded at Tony Visconti's studio over a period of 2 days, mainly at night. Manager Gary Lee saying it was better for the atmosphere. The accounts department saying it was cheaper.
That was sort of our first foray into a proper recording environment. It was very enjoyable. We were very young and fresh-faced, and but yeah, I think for me that period is still my favourite musical period because it was sort of I think more creative or musically more interesting than maybe the latter bit of the band in some ways.
I think of everything that you do. You got the edge on the inside everybody's view. And you call and you cry, not knowing I don't understand. This message is to you that I'm a very better man. Each direction I try, you beat me through and through. And I tell you the real reason why I really hate you.
This truly was the product that defined the group's career in the near future.
Go! You make sound. You got itself a sound of the founders with your Republican love.
Needless to say, by the end of the year, this lineup had recorded many other tracks that were consigned to the bottom drawer.
Now here we go again. Singing Christmas carols, yeah. I'm trying to find the true meaning of Christmas. I naively dream of joy. I'm not
Including the notorious Christmas single, Ode to the New Year, often referred to by people who've heard it as Oh Dear. Cracks that began to reveal themselves during the Lee period ultimately led to AWM breaking up the band for tax reasons in 1988.
Yeah, we had a manager who managed to. The first thing he did, of course, was to come in and sack Pete. That was his first.
Yes, that's show a bit of leadership.
Yeah, that does seem to be the thing. When managers come in, very often they it's a bit like those survival programs or something, you know, where they hone in on the weakest element or not necessarily even the weakest element, but the most vulnerable to attack. And for some reason, because Gary was a sort of drummer, he apparently played with Roger Whittaker. So that obviously impressed us hugely. But he decided to sack Pete. And that's when Paul came in the third time. And that's when he came in, I suppose, as a kind of a proper member where he actually felt like he was in the band in the real sense of the word, being a drummer in the band, as it were.
That was Andrew Mitchell's Gary Lee period. And we were of that period. And that went very sour and caused a lot of upset, and out of that the band split up. But that was over, I don't know how many, 18 years? From the very early stages of Gary Lee, I came in right up to his demise, death. Well, it's not his real death, but death in our life.
Everyone was really taken in by what he was saying. And he basically messed everything up for a long time because of it.
Do you think he ultimately split up the band?
Oh yeah, I think so. Well, I think it probably would have happened anyway, you know, in time. I think it probably accelerated it slightly.
But then he immediately reformed it, with Austin and Neil as Wooden Mac. Believing that recordings that were almost entirely devoid of reverb was a substitute for production, this entity dabbled with the short-lived burgeoning blues scene that lasted at least 39 seconds. As this clip shows, the lip-syncing nightmare that was the Rock Garden video finally brought this dangerous mix of uncommercial elements to a close.
Hey, you over there, boy. What do you think you are doing now? If you want that kind of me, you better come with me here now. Don't you try to play with all the matches you want. Don't you fool around another boy. A problem with you can't today. You better play.
Disenchanted with the colour blue, when it was foretold that it would be the last tedious movie of Derek Jarman and the boy band in the 21st century, and desperately seeking to ensure the cult's anonymity, the new name of the group became briefly Andrew Mitchell's second act.
When I look around, infected by this misery.
It was the leader's attempt to revive the prospects for a comeback of a previous incarnation, the Act Band. But as no one knew it had gone away, this should have been perceived as rather futile. The original lineup featured warring rhythm section Rob Robinson and Paul Williams on drums and bass, Austin and Neil, as always, and confusingly, second keyboard player Richard Johnson.
Don't give away your life to the lair of an insane grace. You haven't got a choice.
The strange circumstances round the events leading to the personnel changes and the blues band disintegrating around the same time are fuzzy, and also slightly boring.
I say, how can you up to the fire? Gonna kill that mother. Ain't never gonna kill.
Needless to say, the cold reduced the cult down to Israeli-born bass player Rami Ramon and a brief stint of Simandi legend Sam Kelly on drums. This lineup finally made it onto the band's first real release, and by real we mean it was on vinyl. Less is more.
What is this? A strawberry?
Following this piece of silliness, Sam left, and the last long-standing member joined the AM, Steve Lafee.
Win an album, boys and girls. What you've got to do is answer a question asked for us by... Yeah, what's the question?
Drummer, and the question is, how many cymbals are there on my drum kit? I remember coming to your audition up at your house in Barnet and standing outside and listening through the letterbox and hearing this big bellowing voice coming from down below. I think we used to rehearse in the basement of the house. So, joining the band initially was great memories for me, and I really enjoyed it. And it was great to be working on original material because I'd already spent some years working on covers bands and things like that. And I'm always pleased to get back to a project that's focused around original material.
In the end, it was the most band-orientated effort.
Well, another day has passed and man has built another wheel. I've been 70 years searching through a blank pages still.
The second album, which was only released on cassette with accompanying singles Stars and Bars, began AWM's obsession with video. As we have seen from the previous footage, the fashion world had made little dent on the barren ground that was the members' sartorial leaning, and this promotional video was to be no exception. Conscious of their lack of identity, and in order to make the group's association with cult practices even more apparent, AWM decided to dress the band up as poorly paid Mormons.
The very bad white suit phase, yeah. I think that that idea came from Talking Heads and was lovingly misinterpreted by myself, and we wore that outfit for a long time, unfortunately.
Except Austin still wore the black suit. Or was he just too cheap to buy a white suit?
Yeah, that was he quite wisely refused.
And you've got 2 albums out, Less Is More,
yes,
and Stranger Tractor. Now, isn't Stranger Tractor only available on cassette, Andrew?
This is true.
Let's not beat around the bush here.
No, but we do have a single.
You do
You've
indeed.
just ruined our surprise question now, but don't worry about it.
Well, there was a long period when we were sort of where I was doing a sort of dalliance with CBS, I suppose, and which later became Sony. And there was a probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years of that particular weird little dalliance. And there were other companies, other majors around. But in the end, everything, none of this stuff came to anything, and that's why everything was released independently, and I just decided to do everything on my own, really.
These were dark days for the organisation. Whilst recording the last album of the era, Mrs. Law, Neil finally decided to escape the group's clutches, and the attempt to find a replacement finally led to Austin running off to join a firm of accountants. The last performance the cult gave was typical of this period.
Neil was the first one to leave, and he just embarked on having a family and all the rest of it, and then it just stopped being fun. And we couldn't find a keyboard player, and we tried various things. We tried getting Mike Casing in to play guitar, so we had 2 guitarists. That didn't really work, and then I played keyboards for a while. And in fact, when we did our final gig, I was on keyboards, and it was the most miserable gig I've ever done in my life. We ended up in Watford playing at this place called the Leviathan to one man and his dog, and it was a fitting end to this kind of the bit of the band that was a bit of a damp squib. By that time we'd done 3 albums though. We'd done the Mrs. Law album, that was the last one, and I think that's the only reason we went on for as long as we did, because I think Austin and I, we both co-financed that, so we sort of thought, well, we should try and give it a go to promote it. But once Neil had left, it was very difficult, and in the end, it sort of, once he decided to quit, I'd already kind of in my mind thought, I'm not enjoying this very much. So, in fact, when he quit, it was a merciful release, because I was happy to quit too.
I told you. Well, I'll do it. No, Scragtag. I'll do it. I want to do it. And now, it's the AM band with No More Rock and Roll. That's nice.
And then we had this very short-lived reunion where we got back together again to do a kids program called Scrag Tag and Toggles Gang.
Throughout the 90s, the former leader wandered from strange engagements on US syndicated television to bizarre engagements doing things like this. And rumours about actual evidence of his sexuality persisted.
Would you say that side of his life has an effect on his stage performance?
Yeah.
He's a very sexual performer.
No.
At one stage, he collaborated with the mysterious Australian political agitator Warren Wills and created the short-lived experiment Comedy Without the Humour. But finally AWM began recording again. In 1999 was the year the world became exposed to the leader's new nightmarish vision, Andy and the Other One.
The name actually came because at that time I had been doing a lot of gigs in a sort of duo setup, mainly with Matt Johnson, but I was also doing stuff with Austin, funnily enough. And what happened was we turned up to one venue, and the manager or whatever came, he booked us and said, "Oh, and who are you?" And I said, "I'm Andy." And then he said to Austin, "And who are you?" And he said, "Oh, I'm the Other One."
So here we go again today, another party, hey. No one knows the issues, but one look and tell.
I think the first one we did, we recorded somewhere, we recorded the drums somewhere in Shoreditch, and then a lot of it was done at Matt's studio, which he used to have in Islington somewhere, and then the rest of it was finished up at mine. The second album, that was almost all recorded at mine, but we did the drums at Boogie Back Studios, which I've since had a long association with. And then the third album, that was mostly done at mine, but I ended up doing the majority of the keyboards. I did that up at Matt's studio, which he had at that time up in Hemel Hempstead.
And I don't know how to make it.
Finally, he killed off his not particularly different alter ego and began operating under his own name, AWM, delving into film projects.
Can I come back to yours tonight?
No, we just had this no.
I know we're over, and I know it doesn't change anything, but I just really don't want to go home.
nationalize this crime away as if it were nothing. You and I know very well the outcome of the decision we're taking here today. I don't shirk it, but I will never stop.
Theatrical productions.
Now, when Blue saw Gospel, well, whoa, it went absolutely crazy. Gospel, she was seduced by the dark nature of blues, particularly because he wasn't there. She wanted him in recycled.
And occasionally worse, still reforming the original band for various bizarre reasons.
That was what then prompted me to get the band back together, sort of to do A Christmas Soul, which was which Austin contributed to slightly reluctantly because he hates Christmas and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think he really wanted to do it very much. So the original takes, the recordings that we did was myself, Neil, Steve, and at that point Derek McIntyre came in on bass. And then Austin did all his stuff. He overdubbed it. He couldn't really envisage doing the live takes. He didn't want to do it.
They sold me a dream of Christmas. They sold me a silent night. They told me a fairy story till I believed in the Israelite. I believed in a Father Christmas. I looked at the sky with excited eyes.
His latest enterprises have involved a short-lived and fractious working relationship with mouthy producer Dweebdroid.
Setting up as an independent producer sucks. Record companies suck. Artists suck. The public suck and never in the right way. Just spent an horrendous 2 weeks recording with some old git from some band from the 80s called the AM Band. AWM. Biggest dick I've ever seen.
The answer, our values would be restored. A new world on the horizon.
AWM and Frank Kepler, talking about the recent collaboration.
A not very warm collaborative association with our Kia Award winner, author Frank Kepler. And he is now currently recording at Abbey Road with the Big Funk Factory. Our investigations have revealed that the sums don't really add up. Yet somehow he's managed to sustain a 30-year career. How has he managed this? What are his real motives, and who would gain from supporting his various ill-considered ventures, such as the second new AM Band album, Loneliness of a Primrose Hill Runner?
They were tracks written around the idea that you could run to them, because I have a playlist when I go running and you can lock into the beat, and they're not necessarily dance tracks, they're just things that just happen to be quite easy to fall into when you're running, to lock into a kind of a 1-2 rhythm thing. The rhythm tracks were the starting point, which is not often the case with the way I write songs. And then, as I say, the idea was to get everybody to be involved in the writing. So at one stage, a lot of the songs that were written, I'd written like half a song with the idea that the guys could kind of come in and take some of my idea and then change it, which is kind of quite often what I used to do when I worked with Austin and so on, but it didn't happen at all. So I ended up essentially finishing these songs off myself. But the whole idea is it's a bit of a concept album as well. It's kind of like about this guy and his entire life unfolding as he runs around the circumference of Primrose Hill. So he's kind of it's like it starts off with his birth, which is why it's called Vesuvius Born, and then it ends up basically with him contemplating death just before he dies. So it's got a happy ending.
In the band's history, there is one shadowy figure who has managed to remain largely under the radar, and some partial to an entirely pointless conspiracy theory are convinced actually runs the whole operation from the side of the stages, sometimes referred to as the Italian, but for the purposes of this film, John Falcini.
In his moments on earth, he gave me so much, and his vision will linger on.
The evidence for this revolves around the band's origins, when he and AWM began the partnership that culminated in the first and best forgotten lineup, with a series of dodgy demos that would gain a new lease of life when resurrected in the final AM Band album. The even dodgier with Love Marie.
The idea of that project was to kind of re-envisage those tracks, but still kind of keep some of the basic idea of, you know, the Juno 6 as we were using then, and the Mellotron and drum machines that were quite basic, like Dr. Rhythms. But obviously the original recordings are unlistenable. And also, not even in concert pitch, in fact, because John's old piano was so rinky-dinky, I don't think the guy could get it in concert pitch. So when I was trying to listen back to those tracks to redo them, I was having that problem of not being able to work out what the key was.
We're about to confront AWM about some of our findings and question him further on the exact nature of Falcini's involvement with the band when a chance remark from one of our researchers gave him the excuse he needed to call the proceedings to a halt.
So over the years, Andy, would you say your accent's changed?
But what do you mean?
Well, back in the early days, in the 80s, you had a suburban, kind of nerdy, kind of school kid accent, and now you're more weatherbeat, rock and roll.
I have no idea what you mean, mate. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't.
Have you been influenced by certain musicians you've worked with over the years?
You know what? I don't know what you're talking about. I think we just better leave it there. So, thanks very much. But yeah, hang on a minute. I live here. You sod off.
Up a little bit further.
Like that, where we would literally record the band live, and it would be much more organic in that sense. Okay, so I'm going to do a little tune now. This is for a friend of mine called Simon, who seems to like this song, so this is dedicated to you, my mate. Here we go. So there we have it. We never really got to the bottom of the origins of the cult of the AM, or AWM's strange involvement in bizarre practices such as the ones we've described in this documentary. Will we ever know the truth behind the artist known as AWM? And do we really care?
Of these beginnings and ends, and I first you think that you're my buddy, that you're not ready. Let me tell you, you'll clearly see that
life knows no strife.